Hello and welcome to Winter Disco Tabletop Gaming. It's Sam. We're back again, looking at some more Dominion stuff. In this video, we're looking at the Kruleboyz, the new Orcs for Age of Sigmar. So if you haven't checked out some of the other videos, we've got a bit of a playlist going. You can check the links in the description. Checked out the trailer, done a live reaction to that, checked out the contents. We've looked at the new Stormcast Eternals in some details, like 25, 26 minute video. And I expect this video will be similar. We're gonna take a deep dive into looking at these new models. Straight off the bat, I absolutely love the direction that they've gone with these new Orcs. They're not the big, chunky, muscular boys. Whereas you have the current Orcs that would rush into battle, charge in, screaming, and just tearing into your enemy. These guys are more prone to chill a bit, be a bit quieter, be a bit stealthier, thinking about it a bit more. You get the idea that these are the brutally cunning aspect of Gork and Mork. They're swamp Orcs. And we'll see throughout the range that they bring this element of swamp through all the design, completely littered the design with the ideas of swamp. So yeah, these guys are the Kruleboyz. Let's have a look at the models. We'll start off with Killaboss on a great Gnashtoof. So these influential Killabosses often ride on ferocious boghound into battle. The beast's slavering jaws and lopping speed make them well worth the trouble. Yeah, it's completely sold me. It really has. While the paint job itself, I think there's not enough variation in the color. It makes sense from the perspective that when you think of like swamps and bogs, you think of that dark grayish green color. In this case, you get everything sort of saturated and toned down. Like the greens aren't as vibrant, the purples aren't as vibrant, the metal edges, while they've been edged, it's not as vibrant. Even the red on the shield, while that's the most vibrant part of the model, it's not a super intense red. It's much more saturated down, and we'll definitely do a bit on the shields because the shields, oh my god. So this model, look at the detail here. Like seriously, there is so much detail. From, again, I'm going to be talking about different materials. I think it's really important that models have a varying number of materials and that they're painted appropriately because it gives you a lot more visual interest. We've got banged up metals of varying different types. We've got ropes, we've got leathers, we've got hairs, we've got bits of flesh and bone and all kinds of crazy things going on. Like this guy has at least 4 heads, 3 hands hanging off places. And I can't even see what's on his back. Yeah, just so much detail there. It's going to be a hell of a time to paint simply because there's so much stuff there. I absolutely love it. So let's start talking about where the swamp element comes in. You can see that there's a lot of elements that are on the vertical. So they go up and down. On the bottom of the creature, you have like the hand and the skull hanging off. Some of the leathers are hanging down in like little strips, like torn up strips. On the helmet of the Killaboss, what are we going to call it? Like the metal headdress, there's a lot of verticality there, in that there's bits that go up and down. The best way to explain it is in the bottom right left-hand corner, you have the bits of moss hanging down. That's essentially what I mean. That stuff, but on the model itself. And that's the feeling that I get. You know that these guys are from a swamp. Instantly get that impression. To me anyway. So that's one of the themes and the parts of the visual language that you see throughout these models. Another part is the rivets on the armor plates. We'll see them in definitely in some of the other models. How it looks like the leather straps or the rope straps are attached to these bits of armor with rivets, and then there's bigger rivets put on as well. It just adds a little bit of visual interest. The most important thing in all the models are the shields. Who designed these shields? Because you are a genius. These shields are just amazing. They really are. It's almost like they're real. The faces of real creatures, but it's obviously metal or leather possibly as well strapped on. They're just stunning. It's definitely a centerpiece of the army. I think it's good that you have the subdued, desaturated colors of the models, and then, like I said, the shield themselves is a bit desaturated to tie it in with the rest of the model, but it's the most vibrant part of it. It's like these war faces that you see coming from the distance. The first thing you see are going to be these giant, horrific, warlike faces. Yeah, well, let's just move on because I don't know what else to say. There's still so much detail on this, but we'll just move on. One thing I will say is the bases. I want to make a whole table just of this ruin, just of a swampy ruin. Okay, let's keep going. We got Swampcaller Shaman and a Hobgrot. Again, first thing, we have this green cloak that covers his entire body, the strips going down. Again, very symbolic of a swampy terrain. And then on his back, which is a gargant skull, I guess. I don't know. That is so cool. And I know I always say that's so cool, but in this case, he's wearing a giant skull on his back. I want to know how he got it. Did he kill that guy? How long has he had it? What's going on? Like, there's so many questions there, and I love that. That aesthetic is just super interesting and intriguing to me. We also have his gnarled wood pole staff symbol thing. One thing you'll see throughout this entire range, everything has some kind of gnarled old wood that would have been like thrown out or put on a fire somewhere rather than being used. At the top of it, I didn't really notice this the first couple of times I was looking at it, but you have like this hand, this corroded bronzy metal hand. Interesting elements in there that is just super nice to see. And of course, under his like tattered cloak, hood or whatever, we do have that red face coming out again. More of those, please. More elements of that. And there's just lots of little things on him, like little chains, little bangles. On his back, he's got some chains holding onto different potions and things, because he's like, does potions and things. He's a wizard and he channels the foul magics of the swamp into toxins and vile elixirs. We also have the best boy there, which is the Potgrot. Awesome name. I love how they're all getting little offsiders. I think that's cool. And again, so much detail there. He's got his little pot that he's working on, but he's got like a backpack, which has a whole bunch of stuff. It's almost like he's wearing a watch as well. Kind of weird. I just love the little bits of attention to detail. Everything's sort of ramshackle. Like we've got that bit of wood on his back. It looks like he's got like a bird foot nailed to it. He's got other little potion jars and vials and things like that. I just love the attention to detail. And this is what Games Workshop have been doing for a few years now and getting better at it. Just those little tiny bits of detail. They're taking the time, and I know lead up for the models usually takes like a 2-year period from, I guess, when they start designing them to having a finished product. It's a 2-year lead time. So they would have been working on this. There would have been so many iterations to get to this point, and it shows so much attention to detail. So let's keep going on. Let's just say it's a Stab-grot with a Killaboss. Oh, come on, guys. They're killing me here. This is so cool. Okay, so the armor of the Killaboss. Let's talk about the Killaboss first, because obviously the Stab-grot's the best. It exemplifies everything I like about this range. We have the big upright orcs, tons of different materials, fabrics and metals and things like that. The ramshackle weapons that's literally been nailed together. A bit of metal they found and nailed to an old gnarled piece of wood. The weird helmets with they're almost like stalactites, or the other one, whatever one grows up, kind of like that. And we've got the helmet. Oh my God, yes, the helmet, I just said. But we've also got the shield with that face on it, with all the tassels hanging off. The fabrics that are sort of like torn and hanging down in like thin strips, all the different types of fabrics and materials, like super. Just, it's a really strong design, a really strong design language, I should say. We can also see that this guy, instead of carrying a shield, he can take a swinging bowl of spiky spikes. But enough about the Killaboss, because we need to talk about the Stab-grot. It's like this little dude is a gladiator and he's mimicking the Killaboss because he wants to be cool. He's almost basically decked himself out exactly the same way. I think that's super cute. It just adds that fun element to it, which we've got to say, this range of orcs is super dark. When you see the trailer for 3rd edition Age of Sigmar, it's brutal. I was watching going, oh, this is actually a really dark world. More darker than 40k. I was like, this is really brutal. These guys are brutally cunning, but also cunningly brutal at the same time. So it's fun to have that little cutesy fun element. This guy would probably stab you too. Well, he's called a Stab-grot, so he's going to stab you. He'd be like stabby, stabs. But I love his little gladiator armor with all the rivets and bolts and stuff on it. I think that's super cute. And I hope they do a full unit of those. I really do. I won't come out with this release, but I really hope they do. There's also got the 22nd Stormcast Eternal in that model too, Dead Boy. Next up, we have the Murknob and Banner. So we finally get one where we can see the face of this orc. And I think you can agree that it's very much along that Lord of the Rings, particularly from the movies, orc face, not the over-exaggerated features that we see in Warhammer Orcs, both in Age of Sigmar and 40k. And again, definitely because these are different orcs, you can tell really because the head isn't like pushed forward, like the spine is almost at a 90-degree angle where his head's pushing out. So it's not that huge hulking thing. And they have like the longer torso and the longer legs and the thinner. It's generally thinner overall as well. So I think this model really shows that off, even though he's covered in fabrics and metals and bits and pieces. This basically is a giant banner. It's a banner belcher. I imagine it's some kind of magical element there. We've got creepy heads and hands stuck everywhere. And that just ties into their whole brutality of these things. These guys are scary. They aren't putting heads on their things and carrying hands and things because they like the trophies. They do like them as trophies, but it's also a fear tactic. That's how I feel about these orcs. And when you look at this guy's face, he just looks mean, just absolutely mean. Like he wants to hurt you, not because he enjoys hurting, he just wants to hurt. Whereas other orcs in the range, they enjoy the fight, they enjoy the scrap, you know, but these ones feel much more scarier to me anyway. Yeah, again, we got like the giant red face, which is really cool. This one has 3 eyes. Yeah, I love the design, how it's all like metal that's been beaten up and hit together to get just all these weird angles. And again, lots of different materials and a creepy face, a crotch face. Yeah, that's weird. Next up, we have the heroes of the army, which you saw in the trailer, the Man-skewer Boltboyz. I think this model is the best one. I really do. Simply because of that weapon. It shows them that they're smart, they're intelligent, they're thoughtful, and they're crafty. They can make something out of a stick, a huge killing machine. And again, we've got a lot of the elements that we've already seen, but I think this, particularly that weapon, that looks super savage, super archaic as well, but at the same time, brutal, like super, super brutal. And then we've got some more like very, again, similar things, but they're all slightly different, even if it's just a different head or more stitches and things. It feels like all of them are unique and individual. And on these, in this particular unit, they have a slightly different aesthetic or design words, I guess, on the fabric or the leather. Like the stitching is around the edges and it's not really stitching anything together. I'd like this unit. I think it's one of the solid ones. And it still has all the same elements that you've seen in the other models. You've got like the red creepy face. You've got all the different fabrics and materials. You've got the hanging down bits like swampy swamps, which is why I think these are swamp orcs. And they're from the swamp as well, so you know, it makes sense. We also have some more. We've got some more. There's so many of them. The Gutrippaz. Basically, you have the Vindicators, are they called? Whatever they are in the new Stormcast Eternal ones in the Dominion box, where they have the shields and the spears. These are basically the opposite of them. And you can really see in these ones how different they are to the other orcs. They're much more humanoid, much more physically agile compared to the other orcs, which are just brute muscle. These guys are far more toned and look like they can move around a lot faster and easier. Again, like the shields. Come on, guys. Come on, let's get on board with the shields. Seriously cool. Yeah, I love it. I love the shields. Well, they're planar models and they're all different. So much variation in them. And I feel like they call out for more kit bashing and more stuff to go on. Add another little bit of metal on one of their forearms or something like that, or customize one of the shields. It's calling out for that because they all look like they have different helmets, different shields, different bits of clothing. Yeah, it's just calling out for more shenanigans on them. Oh man, I seriously cannot get enough of this range. All right, we're going to keep moving on because there's still more to go. We've got the Hobgrot Slittaz, can't even pronounce it. So they're diminutive allies of the Kruleboyz. They lob strange explosive devices and wield wicked daggers to deadly effect. Again, like these are weird. You can tell these are different. Their armor is much more simple, but it's also almost has like a craft to them. So these guys might be more craft orcs, I guess. I'm getting to a point where I'm just lost for words. I'm just still looking at them and just getting completely absorbed in them. But these seem to be more uniform across the range compared to all the other ones. Like the armor itself is far more harder edged. It's not as dinted and pitted as everything else. So yeah, we got a whole bunch of these ones. It's just, you know, they all go together in the same army, but you know, culturally, these guys are different. And I think what ties them in together is the rivets on the armor and the tassels. A lot of the other Kruleboyz orcs have tassel fabrics on them to tie them all together. And this guy's literally throwing one. That's cool. Give me more of them. So that's all that's in the Dominion box. They're not the only models that we're going to be getting. We have this machine, this brutal thing called a Beast-skewer Killbow. What a name. Beast-skewer Killbow. It's used to shoot down large monsters. It's a cannon, essentially. An absolute beast of a cannon shooting out giant arrows. I mean, what more can you say? It's like there's a couple of grots working on it too. Like some loaders that will pull out the big spears. They're essentially giant spears. And this guy just fires them away. Like, damn, dude. This is savage. This thing is huge. It's like it's even bolted down to the rock. It has his command rock because, you know, it's a big weapon. But this is huge. Like he's just taken a small tree out of the swamp and loaded on a giant bow to it. Jeez. Yeah, that would hurt. That would hit you hard. Get on that one. I can imagine just a whole line of these just firing away. And we also get a Breaka-boss on a Maya Brute Troggoth. I don't know what to say about this. This is just freaking cool, man. One thing I think it lacks is the Troggoth wearing some armor panels. I think that would be kind of cool. Just like on his arms or his legs, just to beef him up a bit. He has the thing around his waist, which reminds me of the Beholder from Dungeons & Dragons. But that's so cool. That is super cool. I love how there's so much variation in these things. And I want to know what they actually are. Like, I don't know what these red things are. Where does that symbology come from? What is it representing? Either way, it's cool. Yeah, I'd load up a bit more armor on this guy. It's just a cool model. Like he's riding a Troggoth. Just so many cool details. And he has like it's not his hair, but sort of like a loincloth out of hair with a whole bunch of bones and things tied in there. Just that little detail. Everything's sort of really thought out. There's just so much attention to it. Even on the orc's arm, how the armor is tied to him. It's just tied up with rope, but every little bit of rope is purposely placed by the model designers. And I'm loving the cracked scales on the armor as well. Not on the armor, on the skin of the Troggoth. Yeah, I mean, This range is so cool. I'm gonna be gushing about this for a long time. I'm so excited to get my hands on it because it feels more orky to me from a fantasy perspective. Like we have savage orcs. They were like, yeah, we kind of get it, but they didn't feel like they had their own uniqueness to it. We've got the other orcs. They're cool, but they're all very similar. These orcs have far, far more personality, not from individual models, as they have personality and character. The whole culture feels like there is something more there. So on the Troggoth, I imagine that the bones isn't just there because they wanted to put bones on it. It's probably some cultural way of wearing bones. That kind of stuff. Do like the whole red faces thing, whatever that is, that creature. It's this historical, cultural language that just works for me. I'm very excited for this range. I hope you are too. So that's where we're going to leave this video. Hit me up on social media, on Twitter and Facebook. You can check on the card or in the description. But if you also like this video and there's a longer form me just gushing about models, hit the like button, comment below, and also subscribe if you're new, and hit the bell button because we're going to be having more Age of Sigmar 3rd edition coverage, more Dominion coverage, more coverage of this new faction because holy boy, look at him. So good. All right, I'm out of here. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in another video. Bye.